Our next presentation is a discussion with a notable DP and a colorist. The DP is Brett Pawlak and the colorist is Vertovec. They're here to tell us about the relationship that they've developed and how they communicate. Brett has shot some indie films like Short Term 12 that they worked on together, and then the major studio production, which Ian also colored, Just Mercy. So tell us a little bit more about your background and how you got to be connected.
We met through a mutual friend who was producing a movie. He was producing a movie that Brett was shooting, and he reached out to us at Light Iron, and we're like, "Yeah, come on and bring in the film." And I remember the first day we met. I've told the story before. I'd seen the film already. I didn't know anything really about it, but I had seen some of the images from it, and I wanted to come to the table with some ideas because, as a colorist, you're coming into the creative conversation kind of late. Like the director, the cinematographer, production designer, they have kind of a dialogue already, and then you're kind of adding. And sometimes you can add a fresh perspective, but sometimes you're also playing a little bit of catch up. So I kind of had a couple of ideas, and I wanted to kind of present some ideas to them when they came in for their first day of color. And I remember I had not met Brett before, and I showed some ideas. I'm like, here's what I'm thinking, and it was kind of like some browns and some rich contrast. And I remember Brett kind of looked at it, and he was like, I kind of want the opposite of all of this.
Yeah, in like the best way. It wasn't necessarily me thinking that any choice he was making was a bad one. It was more, I think of working with a colorist very collaborative. I mean, filmmaking is collaborative. It's a collaboration. Everyone's has their opinions, and we're trying to all have the same end result. And yeah, like as a colorist, unfortunately, he's very late in that conversation sometimes he's very late in that conversation where we have already shot everything. Me and the director have discussed everything. The production designers have designed everything. Costumes have made their costumes, and all those choices have been made before he even has a chance to touch it. And he's only going off of what his interpretation of the look is. And, on that film, we didn't really I had an idea of what it was going to look like, but I was still definitely open to working with Ian and opening up that dialogue. So by saying that the film, let's just do the opposite of this, was also, at the time there were very, there's always a type of, popular looks and things that are, current. And I try to always do something a little different than what's currently popular, staying ahead of the curve a little bit, but also being unique and being true to the specific story that you're telling. So that was just a chance for me to kind of start from scratch. His preconceived notion of the film wasn't that it was wrong. It was just let's both start from one, and let's discuss it together and let's find it. So that was the first time we collaborated, and it's evolved. We've done 12 projects together.
Yeah, well, in that project, again, it was a long time ago. Technology is, like you said, Jim, technology's changed so much. And so now there's more tools to kind of bring the look that when we work together to design a look, there's more tools nowadays to kind of bring that forward. And actually so what Brett's done on the last several projects is he's come in during prep, instead of coming in at the very end of at the end of the editing and after it's all shot and dailies and visual, everything's kind of been done, and then the colorist kind of comes in and says, what if it was different? It's more of let's figure out something together, and then kind of put that in the camera.
Shooting some tests.
Some tests, but actually loading the LUT in the camera, and then that could be kind of a platform that all the other creative work, it kind of is built off of. And this is why we brought up this image here, because this is one of the most recent projects that we worked on together. And you could see what's kind of amazing about this it's a show called American Born Chinese. It'll be on Disney Plus soon, and what's amazing about some of the images in this is Brett had this kind of amazing idea to turn the leaves of all the trees kind of into this bright red.
Yeah, I mean, basically, some of it's based on a graphic novel, American-born Chinese. Some of it takes place in heaven, and our depiction of heaven was sort of, you know, kung fu. There's a lot of references to you know, Hong Kong cinema and things like that. We kind of we didn't go too heavy-handed into it, but it was definitely a project to kind of have fun. It was the most saturated and colorful movie project that Ian and I have done. But I mean, the concept came from Kodak Aerochrome that I really like, and I thought it would be really fun to try. And we didn't shoot film, and obviously we can't do that practically with film, but I had the concept of doing it with digitally, and I was just thinking about it early on, pitching it to directors, and I mean, the whole idea of getting Ian early. I speak to Ian even before I start to pitch ideas to the director. Like, this was destined as well, and that's because my whole job and kind of the way technology's moved and the way where we live now in terms of pre-production and technology in terms of film and coloring is that, and cameras. I'm trying to sell the look before we even go to shoot it. Like, I told Ian, I have this crazy, can we do an aerochrome LUT? And he was like, sure. So we started just like sending screen grabs back and forth. I took a camera out, I shot tests, he took the clips, and that's what I presented to Destin. I said, here's what I'm thinking for the look. What do you think? And he was all about it. Because also, we were able to build the LUT and shoot with the LUT. So when we were shooting these scenes, everyone in video, all the monitors, everyone was seeing this. They weren't seeing green trees, they were seeing the pink trees. And that, it seems like a small thing. It seems like, you know, great, it's nice to see it. But what it does is it sells the image to to the production, to the studio, to everybody. The dailies are all this way. There's no other way they saw it than this. Because if we try to do this the other way around, where they just see references, and I'm like, this is what it's gonna look like, but they've watched everything for months and months and months with green trees. The moment we go into color and we turn this on, it's gonna freak everyone out. But also, it's a bigger discussion because it's easy to say we're going to build a LUT that makes all the green pink. It's a very simple, you know, concept, but there's a lot about it as well where I had to make sure that wardrobe, production design, everyone is aware that everything green is going to turn pink, including Michelle's dress, which was a very specific color, and it would pick up and turn green. So, and also there's a lot of other wardrobe in this show that in these sets that were considered. So that's sort of where our relationship is now, and prepping is very important. Where Ian is an early, we get into conversations way before I even discuss things with directors and producers to try and it's great because it's like picking a film stock. It's like picking, you're shooting on something very specific throughout to keep that look. And we started doing it it's gotten more and more, you know, intricate and a little more specific as you go. As technology changes, you can be more specific with that built-in LUT that you're shooting with. And the goal is you're shooting for a very specific image, and it makes its way all the way down the pipeline. So on set, they're looking at it that way. In dailies, they're looking at it that way. Editorials looking at it that way. By the time you get to color and actually finishing, you're basically just reapplying that LUT and doing the very small tweaks to it, balancing it, and maybe some windows to fix it, but
Windows and such, yeah.
yeah,
Not
Windows.
fighting for your vision.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is what's really interesting is like the actual technology of making this look is not hard. It's like keying green and flipping it the other direction. It's not that difficult. But what is really interesting is like how powerful like how important it is for the collaboration. Because doing the thing is not necessarily hard, but getting everyone on board, getting all the different departments to kind of see your vision and then add on to it, that's kind of the real power here. Is because like Brett said, like if you just told everyone, hey, don't worry, it's going to be everything green is going to be red like later, like they can say, yeah, okay, but it's still not the same as like looking at the monitor and seeing that on the monitor.
Yeah, shooting film, it used to be, hey, trust me, it's going to look good, but now everybody's and their brother is watching the monitor.
Everyone
they all have an opinion.
Everyone has an opinion.
Yeah, so it has to look right, and it has to look, and then everyone has an opinion, but everyone has to be on board, like this kind of temporary. This is just the generic look. It's actually going to be like all these different things. It's hard. It's hard.
So it's really valuable getting you involved early on.
Well, it's just part of the collaboration.
And does that work well with Panavision? Panavision and Light Iron are close, sister companies.
Closely integrated. Yeah, when we were working on the DXL camera, that was a big part of it. Is coming up with kind of an idea of it's a base of a red camera, but then it's kind of has Panavision loaded onto it, and so I kind of worked on the transform that was informed by a lot of the work that Brett and I had done of like exactly like coming up with like a film-ish looking look, but that also kind of takes advantage of like everything that the digital can do in terms of like the colors and the spectrum, and not just staying within kind of the film space.
Now, on a major feature like this, how many LUTs do you have?
I just build one usually.
Just one, yeah.
I don't try to get too. I try to. I'm like simple. The simpler the better, because I found that. It's taken a while to get to a point of being comfortable with a workflow that I'm confident in, and the best way that I've gotten to is building a LUT, working with Ian close in prep, and even if the LUT's not perfect by the time we're shooting, we can still change it. But I don't really rely on the CDL too much on set because it just doesn't transfer. Like you can't really trust it once you go to the final cut. Those notes aren't really there, and it's like you're kind of doing it on the day, and you might be making decisions that aren't really that important. But what I will do is I'll make more choices in terms of in-camera settings. So Ian will build me one LUT, and then on the day I'll warm it up or cool it off by shooting at a different color temperature in camera. So I'll shoot at 4300 or 5600, and I'm constantly dialing my color temperature to match what that scene is with just the one LUT. Maybe there might be another LUT that's a little sensitive if there's like a lot of night work or something, but that's basically like a lower, like not so much contrast or like a little softer of a curve or something.
I think that's really important because when you build a show LUT, it can get a little tricky because what you're essentially doing is you're coloring something before it's been shot, not after it's been shot. So you don't have that visual feedback of like what you're doing, and you have to be careful. Like if I make a dark LUT, that's going to darken down the image, and then they're going to open up and then they're going to maybe overexpose it. And if you make and then the opposite is true, and then of course the same with warm and cool. Like if it's a very, very warm LUT, sometimes it looks great under neutral light, but then you go under warm light and it's way too warm. So it's like really when you build a show LUT, having that middle gray reference and just turning your look on and off and seeing middle gray stay in its position, so you're not pushing or pulling with the LUT and forcing the cinematographer to adjust their exposure.
You know what to trust.
Exactly.
When you look at the DIT monitor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so having the LUT do fun things around the periphery in terms of like how certain hues could shift or densities can shift, but keeping middle gray relatively neutral in exposure and in color temperature is important because then it gives Brett the ability, like you said, to adjust the Calvin, to adjust, and kind of turn one LUT into multiple LUTs by just adjusting, the camera.
Can you tell us a little bit about Just Mercy? Because I know a lot of people have seen it. Beautiful work.
Thank you.
For both of you.
Just Mercy was I knew it was coming up, and it was as they were developing the DXL, which is what we ended up shooting the movie on. So it was really fun because the DXL has light iron color in it, and it's basically the stock LUT that you can shoot that camera with, which is a great LUT because I've since shooting that movie, I've had Ian make me a light iron color LUT for everything, basic for like for a Airy or for a Red, or anything that any other camera that I've shot since then, I have that sort of LUT, because that LUT was basically we describe it as like if I had just shot Alexa or anything or Red, once he brings it in and before we even start to talk about it, when he projects it, the first corrections he makes to get to like a starting point is that LUT. So I used that LUT on the film, and we tweaked it. I shot tests with it, and we ended up tweaking it a little bit.
We tweaked the greens a lot because the greens were
turning yellow. Yeah, because we were shooting in Alabama, and in a little bit of Atlanta, and we needed. It was. I mean, there wasn't terribly specific. We didn't change. It was very minute changes, but it was kind of the first time that I was able to really get Ian involved early, and it was very beneficial because it was the first time we really went from like tests, build a LUT, shoot, and then like I said, get to final color, and everyone had already bought in on that look. Everyone was already in on it, so I didn't have to convince anyone later when we got to color to be like, no, this is the look. Like, there's no like this will be what it is later. I'm more confident in shooting when, it isn't the world where you're shooting film and you're like, trust me, it's going to look amazing. It's now everyone's seeing it as it is, and people need to trust the monitors. People really need to, especially when people are pushing exposure, these days, and the technology is like lending yourself to do that. But everyone's on set looking at monitors and judging it, not to just judge it, but because they know that it's gonna like go. They're looking at something that's accurate. So I try to get it as accurate as possible on set, so that I'm not trying to do any voodoo magic on them, like, like, trust me, I have the vision. No, you're like, I'm like, and also, like, I tell all my directors, like, what you're seeing, we're communicating through this monitor right now, like, and like a silhouette is the perfect example of that sort of thing, where my interpretation of a silhouette, I'm like, this is going to be silhouette, and they're like, cool, that's great, and then you show them the silhouette, and they're like, actually, that's a little too.
I can't see his face.
That was literally, I was shooting yesterday, and we had that exact thing happen. It was a silhouette.
Very common one.
And I was like, I looked over and I was like, Destin, like, how do you feel about this? He's like, oh, that's too much. And I was like, okay, cool. So then I'm fully confident walking away that when we go and look at it later, he's not going to be like, I thought we were going to see his face, and then we have the awkward conversation.
Another thing, when you say, trust me in film, and then they see it the next day, and you don't have good communication with the dailies colorist,
exactly,
you could get fired.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And it's also important because, dailies are still existing, and making sure that the dailies are matching the things everyone's seeing on set, and people who aren't on set aren't seeing the monitors. So they need to see, it's way better for everything to be, very clear from my perspective. And anytime I've done that and been able to have a really good LUT, it helps the streamline the workflow, but also it really is beneficial in like aesthetic, in communicating an aesthetic early, and getting people to trust that aesthetic. Like this. I mean, again, it's a very simple thing, like turn the greens pink, but it informed a whole bunch of things way down the line, production design, costumes. Everyone was making like, and this was sort of, it was like, oh, that's cool. That's the thing we're making. We can go further here. And
we're kind of left alone in DI too. Like when we actually go to color this, no one's like, well, I have to go and babysit you guys while you're working on it, because because I don't know what's going to be. And we're just like, no, it's going to be exactly what you've been looking at the whole time. We're just going to do like little eye windows and little, we're just going to do all this kind of stuff. And that's what we do actually do. We're being honest. But like, there's no like, well, I don't, no one's thinking I don't actually know what it's going to look like. They know,
How long do you get to color a movie like this, major motion picture?
This is, well, I mean, it really depends. I guess like a studio feature could be, like a few weeks, like a month or so. It depends on really how many visual effects and what the schedule is on that visual effects. Visual effects, you never know. You can get them all, or it could push the whole project, down the road. So, but usually a few weeks. This was an episodic series. This was 8 episodes. And I had a couple of days per episode, so
You were pretty close by the time you got it.
Yeah, I mean, like Brett said, really, it was like a couple of days. It was a day to kind of set this look before, and then it's just a couple of days going in and doing the windows on the faces and just opening everything up and directing the eye, as the film, as the story plays, and just kind of working through.
Yeah, I mean, it's also nice. I mean, it's not a lot of time to color anything. It's very fast, but it's also, it is a testament though to like having worked with Ian for so long, because as you're working with people, people have different preferences, and when you tell a colorist, oh, that should be warmer, everyone has a different interpretation of what warmer means.
Show me.
Yeah, like what's warmer to you? So, I mean, my favorite thing is that early on when we were doing short term, I kept being like, I think this should be a little warmer, and we would be trying to dial in. It's like, that's like, it's too much red. Like, no, that's too yellow. And then one day I was just like, the color of champagne? He's like, yeah. And I was like, it needs to, like, when I say warmer, I mean like champagne. And ever since, every project, when I say, instead of saying like, oh, we should make this warmer, I'm like, oh, more champagne.
Yeah.
And we know exactly, what that is, and we don't have to, and that goes, but I also learned too, like, communicating with like my gaffer and things like that, like, that's sort of, with relationships going on,
Yeah, because like,
years.
Yellow is so broad, right?
Yellow.
Right? Like, it could be champagne, it could be straw,
Yeah.
it could be honey.
Yeah.
And those are all, like, and, like, food is obviously a great reference.
It's easy.
Because that's, like, we're so evolutionary, biologically, like, conditioned to know what good food is.
That's a good point.
But it is hard. It's hard, those more generic, I mean, it's almost like the wine tasting terms.
Yeah, exactly.
They're very helpful, because you know what straw is versus honey.
Yeah.
And so, but they're both yellow, so it is just easier to do. And then, of course, when you've worked together on multiple projects, we could always be like, let's not do that one film. Let's just, like, that was great, but let's do the opposite of that, and then more like this other film. And we were just talking about grain before, and we're like, oh yeah, on this movie we added more grain, and on this other movie we didn't. And then there's one movie we thought we were going to add grain, and then we
took it off.
And then we looked at it, and we're like, no.
Yeah, it's easy to do. Take it away, right?
Yeah.
Let's take a couple questions. I'm going to repeat them. Go ahead. Okay.
That was pink.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's gold.
Is that gold? Or is it pink? Well, I can't remember. I mean, the thing is, it seems like a very simple LUT, but when you actually are looking at it, it's so cool. So, like, it seems very simple here, but the way that it interprets things. So we were trying to be a specific. The biggest conversation was what color pink, right? Like the yellow to, it's like we were trying to figure out. We went through different iterations of how pink, more pink,
some of them
hot
are
pink.
Yeah, if you
strawberry,
if you Google aerochrome film, you're going to get a very broad spectrum of red. Some of them are really magenta, really hot pink, almost like highlighter hot pink. And so we were talking more like a fire truck, like a rich fire truck, schoolhouse brick kind of color for the leaves,
So with that, we would like distribute the screen grabs of the tests to all the departments, like, and so costumes was able to pick a complementary red and pink that we would be turning the the foliage into that felt like it all existed in the same world, so it didn't clash. And also making sure they didn't have green on things that so that was I will say that thing I believe is intentionally that color.
They had a couple prop trees, right? Like
We also had prop trees to put into areas, not this specific. This was all actual green, but this sequence takes place in multiple areas with more foliage than others. So we also then had to bring. There was up in Topanga, we shot up in the hills of like Rocky Peak, and that's way more rock. There's not as much green. This is the Disney Ranch. This is out in Santa Clarita. So we chose this color, and so production design was able to get the greens department to bring in foliage that matched that we didn't. So when we turned on the LUT, if we turned off the LUT, it would be this. But they brought in stuff so that they could add to it a little bit where there were places that didn't have as much actual foliage in it. So, and there were different types of green. That dress is actually was a little bit of an issue because it was very close to green. It has a lot of green in it, so it was a little bit of a
keeping the pink out
thing to keep. Yeah, because also the difficult thing too, which I was warning everyone early with this LUT, and I was very worried about, was that not only are you about to turn everything around them green, there's also, I took a lot of care and in making sure that, because there's also grass all around them, so all their ambient light is basically green as well. So there's a chance they were all going to go pink, like it's all like their skin tones. Yeah, their skin tones were about to change as well. So I had to be I had to put down a lot of negative. I had to put down a lot of muslin and bounces to make sure that all the return was not gonna
But you had that live on set, right?
But I had it live, yeah, exactly. So that we were viewing it. If otherwise, I could have gotten in more trouble. But we were able to look at it, and I could see it and know that her skin was not going to turn green on us.
You had another quick question? How do you learn color management?
You work on it every day for 20 years. Is how I did it. There is things like ACES, that is designed to standardize it so that you don't have to because what I do is I essentially color manage everything on my own because I've been doing it for so long. I know what I'm doing. But things like ACES mode is designed to make it more of like a this is what you do now kind of thing. And so it's meant to be more straightforward and more simplified. Can you still get yourself in trouble? Totally. But it is, that's kind of what it's for, is to kind of be a standard and be a little bit of a roadmap. Because it is the Academy, there's a community to resource when you get stuck. But I don't know.
I'm a cinematographer, and I have no idea what Ian does, to be honest, from a technical standpoint. I mean, the very first thing that I do is I'll shoot some tests on my own, or I'll shoot stills, and I'll take it into, if it's stills, I'll take it into Lightroom, and I'll just tweak it and find a look, what's the look of this that I'm even trying to describe to him. And then if I do shoot, I'll go to Panavision, I'll shoot tests if I'm trying to pick out lenses or a camera, and I'll just throw that into Resolve, and I'll just do a very, very terrible job. I have no idea I don't know how to use nodes. I just know how to sort of structure it in a sense and tweak contrast and brightness and color and put on some sort of a LUT and just get it to a point of going to be able to go to Ian and say, here's the thing, here's what I'm trying to describe to you, here's the look. And then after that, it's all, I have no idea how he gets from that to what he's giving me, in the LUT to actually use.
Yeah, I mean, usually we just are texting images back and forth and saying, here's what I like about this image. Yeah. Here's what I don't like about this image, and that really informs. It's like it's a great creative
And also since we have done this a few times, and the light iron color in the DX Sol is kind of a great example of that, because that just became a base. Like all of our LUTs, everything like this look actually is based all the way down the chain off that initial LUT. So there is a familiarity with that look, and then we go, well, here's what we had on this. But maybe we add this to it, or maybe we take away this to it, or this curve is, the last time we did it, it was curving this way, but maybe it curve, or we take out so it's kind of just tweaking that base LUT. It's kind of the same LUT.
I mean, it's like cooking soup, I guess, where it's like you have kind of your thing, and then you're like, let's add some more salt, or like let's add a little bit more spicy this time, you know what I mean? And you're tasting it, and you're like, no, that was too much, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like that. It's kind of like you have a soup,
it's the
and
same
you're just
recipe,
adding a little bit more of one type of
recipe.
flavor and subtracting another type of flavor.
Now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the DIT is sort of like the on-set color person, right? We talked about your communication with Brett. What's your communication like between light iron and the on-set DIT?
My communication with the DIT, it's pretty vital a lot of times, because they're troubleshooting all of the different cameras and all of the different formats, and this is going to be on a drone, and it's going to have to be, so it's a different pipeline. So sometimes, I think you said you don't rely as much on CDLs, but other cinematographers prefer CDLs. So it really is just talking to them. For me, it's building the look with the cinematographer, and then the DIT is the person on set that kind of maintains it, and like, oh, we need this, but it needs to be for a different camera. So can we input a different color space into that LUT? Sometimes they can handle it themselves. Sometimes they need to go back to me and be like, hey, this is cool, but like we're using a Venice on this one shot because it's already mounted on the helicopter. Can you just make a Venice version of that LUT? You know what I mean? So sometimes they can do it. Sometimes they got to go back to me for it. It's just like, production is wild, and anything can happen, and they're the one there that's kind of making sure that Brett has what he needs, and then that he can communicate with the other department heads.
I could talk to you guys all day about this. I mean, it's great stuff. But okay, burning question here. Last one. How do you color for black and white?
Well, black and white is actually quite challenging to color. I've done multiple projects in black and white because, the color informs your eye where to look. It's one of the main things that we have, that we're, again, evolutionarily, biologically evolved to be able to see the predator in the that's going to come and get us, right? And the color is one of the giveaways of that. So black and white is very beautiful, but it becomes a more of a challenge visually, because you have to direct the eye. All you have is shades of gray. All you have is all of your different tonality between those two extremes, and then you have to kind of compose and direct the eye, both within the frame, but also temporarily, kind of as the film plays. Where does the eye go from cut to cut? And and can we basically, it's the old photochemical dodging and burning. Like, can we just dodge and burn these other areas so that you're looking at a brighter object, or a higher contrast object, or a sharper object. There's a lot of texture that you can do with black and white. You can do, use blurs, and then opacity back those blurs, different types of diffusion, different types of halation, all texture stuff. It's not just color. So there's a lot in there. And it's sometimes a lot more difficult, but it's very beautiful when you do it well.
Well, thank you, guys.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Wonderful.